Marvel Rivals has a DPS problem, and this problem has always been around since the game has been released, but some people still think it's about the DPS heroes or how the duelist role has more heroes than any other role. But people are starting to realize it's mostly about the people that play DPS that's the problem. And the first point is that DPS players are toxic, they take no accountability, they blame others, they have the most deaths on your team, they have main character syndrome, they throw when something isn't going their way, and they have this mentality where they think they're him, they think they're gonna drop a bunch of finals in their match. They think they know what they're talking about. They talk down to everyone else. And this point is, I agree with the majority of players that your average DPS player ends up being like this, especially mid to low ranks. So anywhere between plat, gold, diamond, and GM, most of your DPS players aren't particularly good at the game, but they usually end up being toxic, usually think they know what they're talking about, behave like if they're particularly good at the game. And another reason why DPS players are a problem in Marvel Rivals is because they never want to go on the other roles. They always want to lock in triple DPS. They end up being the main reason why you lose games, why games are more frustrating to play, why if you're solo taking you have to do more work, or if you're a support you have to heal different ways, you have to become an off support where you're pushed up more further to heal these DPS players. These DPS players are just selfish, they don't accommodate. They don't take advantage of your space. If you're a tank player, they don't take advantage of the space you create. A bunch of these things. Or they keep spamming for heals even though they're like 10 miles away from you. All of this to say that these DPS players are making Marvel Rivals, your average match, is making it more miserable, is making it more frustrating to play. Because you basically have to accommodate to you not having another tank, or you having to deal with having no tank at all, or maybe even one support. And this would really frustrates people. And one of the other things is that they don't swap. So it kind of couples with this mentality of not believing they're at fault, so they never swap. All this to say that it's objectively true what people are saying about DPS players. Basically make the game more miserable, they're making the game more frustrating to play, especially if you just want to have a chill time where you just want to rank up and not have like a big simple issue of just having to deal with triple DPS, having to deal with DPS players who have main character syndrome. You just don't want to deal with this, especially if you just want to play a good match. Or even if you don't care about this, the last thing you want to deal with is toxic players trying to talk down to you simply because you either made a mistake or simply because they think they know better about how to win this game. But my main point here is that people are looking at this problem at the wrong way. Yes, everything I said is subjectively true, that your average DPS player is going to be the main reason why you lose, why they keep locking triple DPS, why they're selfish, why they make the game more miserable. Yes, all this stuff is objectively true, but people are looking at this problem like it's just a DPS problem. People are not looking at it as a Marvel Rivals player-based problem. But first is, why do DPS players do this to begin with? And that's because DPS within itself, the role, is too impactful, and players realize this. Why do you think every time you're playing tank or someone is filling in tank, they'd be like, man, I'm just gonna go triple DPS and try to do something. Let me get some finals, because obviously all the space I'm creating, all the advantages I'm creating, all the opportunities I'm making for my DPS players to get eliminations, they're not doing it. They're not doing their role right. So let me just go DPS and do it myself. Why do you think every time your team sees, oh shoot, we got 4 DPS players and none of them want to swap? Alright, I guess I'm gonna go DPS myself. Why do you think they do that? It's because they know they have the most potential to get eliminations. They have the most potential to carry the team, even though your team is playing for themselves. Every player that plays this game knows DPS has a lot of advantage, a lot of potential to carry, a low TTK, has good ultimates to even further boost that chance of carrying. Everything about it is basically setting it up to be a solo carry or be the main person in your team carrying. Even if your DPS players aren't bad, and let's say you're running double tank, double support, and 2 DPS heroes, and you guys end up winning the match, and you see your DPS had like 50 or 40 finals, you'd be like, damn, they carried. Everyone knows that DPS role is the role that you want to carry with, is the role that carries. And like I'm saying, like, let's just put aside the average DPS player. Let's just put them aside. Yeah, we know they're bots, we know they're bad, we know they don't do what they need to do half the time, and they're egotistical, but let's just take them out of the equation for a second. If you play Marvel Rivals, if you're a tank player, even a support player, and you try to be a team player, you're gonna realize that this garbage matchmaking system does not give you teammates that basically try to help you out, even though you're playing as a team player. So why would you even risk further enjoyment or risk you even losing that match if you're trying to be a team player? You see that team playing as a team isn't valuable, it's not worth it because of this garbage matchmaking system. So why not just go triple DPS, quadruple DPS even, and basically have a good chance of winning that game? Or if you lose, you know that you weren't at fault. You know you had some stake in almost winning that match, or basically having a good chance to win. Why are you leaving your hands up to randoms? And like I said, this isn't just like a DPS problem, it's like a player-based problem. It's the player base is getting affected. And like I said, one of the main reasons is the matchmaking system that's affecting players to behave like this. It's just that DPS is that role where like people can just go to in order to help their chances of climbing out of certain ranks or to carry their team if they're doing bad. I'm gonna give my own personal experience here. There's so many games where I could have went second tank, but I end up going triple DPS because I know if you try to fill in tank, half of the time your team isn't gonna profit off that space you make or even take opportunities when you try to play tank at all. I'm just better off going triple DPS and having at least some sort of opportunity to carry my team or be the reason why my team didn't lose. And for the people that don't get what I mean, for example, let's say you're a support player and you end up having to fill tank, you'd be like, bro, my supports are so bad. If I would just support, I can basically carry my team. I can basically do better. You basically regret not going support. You'd be like, damn, if only I went support, I could have had a better chance of carrying. Now my team lost and I could have done something about it, but I didn't because I wanted to be a good team player. Even though my team is basically just playing for themselves. They're not doing anything. So yeah, that is probably one of the main reasons I think, or I believe, is why people even do this to begin with. Why are these players like this? It's because if they try to play on the role, it doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the same amount of opportunities to carry, to be the reason why your team wins. And you don't want to be that team player that, yeah, I'm going to play support. Yeah, I'm going to play tank. And do all this teamwork, do all this space creating, do all this opportunity creating, just for your team not to do anything with it, and just basically you just basically let yourself lose when you could have just swapped to something else, and that's it. You could have had a better chance of winning. And the second reason why players are like this is basically since there's no Roku in this game, they can get away with it. And players like this, if they were to add Roku, how many players would just never play Roku and just keep playing open queue? How many players would keep doing that? Especially DPS players. Why would they subject themselves to forcing themselves to play a role they don't want to play? And what I mean by this, if you ever played Overwatch 1, you ever seen when the game was dying or the game was basically not having the player base it used to have? The DPS queue times were so long, and I think Marvel Rivals know this inherently. If they were to put a role queue into this game, DPS will probably have the highest queue time in this game ever. It'll probably have like a 10-minute, 20-minute, 15-minute queue time just to play DPS. And people like that Marvel Rivals is open queue because I'm like, man, swapping to any role, to any hero at any given time is so much better. There's so much freedom in this. But people don't like this freedom. People like to complain. People don't like to see the negative down effects, like the downsides of all this freedom that they have. Like, it's like, yeah, but this is what happens if you have open queue, then people lock in whatever they want. And trust me, you don't want people that don't even play support or tank to be locking in support and tank. Because the moment they're like, all right, you can queue 2 roles at the same time, the support and tank, the queue time is like 2 to 3 minutes and DPS role is like 10 minutes. So they queue and they get into a tank role. Imagine how many DPS players, instead of playing as an actual traditional tank, frontlining, do all this stuff, how many are they gonna just straight up just be going for eliminations, for going for finals, instead of actually playing as a team player? How many players are gonna get like this? And this even is gonna go further for support players. Imagine you get a support, you'd be like, oh, finally, I got my match. I was waiting 15 minutes for DPS and I got into a match. Oh wait, my support players aren't your traditional support players. They're not your Invis, they're not your Luna Snow mains, they're not your Cloak and Dagger mains, it's some dude that wants to play DPS but didn't, so he queued for support. Now he's playing Ultron, he's playing Adam, he's playing Mantis, and he's just going for straight finals. Or he's playing Luna Snow, he's trying to flank, he's trying to be against Luna. You're gonna be like, holy, I would rather them be another DPS than rather than them being a fake support player. And if you still don't understand what I'm trying to say, because I went on a rant about Roku into this game, is that DPS players like Marvel Rivals the way it is. They don't really care if they're getting blamed for being bad or going triple DPS. They enjoy that they can play DPS whenever they want, however they want. And the thing about it is that even if you can keep complaining about, oh, they're ruining my matches, just let them derank and just basically be out the game. The only thing Marvel Rivals really could do to not basically cut their player base in half is to fix the matchmaking system in this game. And the third reason I'm going to give is because DPS players, the ones that are always locked in DPS, never want to commentate, never want to be a team player, is because this game isn't serious. There's so many matches where I went quadruple DPS, triple DPS, no tank, 2 healers, or even 1 healer, and we still end up beating the enemy team. And this happens in GM, and if you're above GM, you know GM isn't that serious. Most players like to think it is simply because you're like, what, above 10%, 90% of the player base. But if you never reach GM or you're around GM and you're just hard stuck, trust me, GM, don't take it too serious. It's not that serious. It is why DPS is always locked in, because like why would I subject myself to playing as a team when this game isn't even serious? The players you meet here aren't serious. Marvel Rivals is probably their first game they ever played, or probably like the third competitive game they ever played, and they're still playing like they don't know how to play games. It is probably the main reason why I do it, because I'm like, bro, like I know how this game is. It's not meant to be taken super serious, like super competitive, especially if you're just solo queuing. The matchmaking system in this game is garbage. Why would you try to play as a team player? The chances you actually get a good team that is running comms, knows how to play, wants to accommodate, is not just throwing blame left and right, that's gonna be like probably 5 to like 10% of your matches that you get. And if you solo queue, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When nobody uses their mic, everyone's throwing blame at each other, no one's playing as a team. Even if you're rocking 2 supports, 2 tanks, and DPS, players are still playing horribly. Players are still playing garbage. They're still not taking accountability. They're still acting like if it was like not their fault. Now I'm gonna give my fourth and final reason to sum this whole thing up and basically explaining why this isn't just a DPS problem. It is a Marvel Rivals player-based problem. Marvel Rivals has been out for already 9 seasons. This game has already established its player base. Its player base is locking in whatever role they want, being selfish, thinking they're actually good when they're actually not. A bunch of these things are contributing to Marvel Rivals player base. The roles, the buffs that supports get, tank getting shafted, DPS players getting shafted, dive getting shafted, all these things play a big role. The only reason why people think it's a DPS problem is because it's the easiest role to blame. If you're doing bad, bro, our DPS isn't getting finals, bro. He's so bad, bro. Just get off DPS, just go support, and at least try to at least be useful to the team. If you're doing bad, bro, just go tank with me, just try to frontline and let the other DPS player try to carry or something like that. Why I think that's the case. And the thing about it is that you can really see this once you reach a certain level in this game. And what I mean is like once you get out of GM, you're around Celestial, out even GM, even if you're GM, Eternity, One Above all of these ranks, people start realizing like, bro, it's not just the DPS problems, it's the supports problems, it's the tank problems. Why do you think the term heal bot came? Because they realized like, bro, you think you're safe just because you're heal bot, just because you're just healing tanks in front of you? Bro, the these players need heals. Look around, your awareness is garbage. Support players are always getting accommodated with their buffs. Look at Cloak and Dagger right now in Season 9. She's basically almost unkillable. She has 3 abilities that negate a bunch of damage and basically are escape out of jail free cards like that. All this to say that these players are selfish. The only reason why they think they aren't is because their role has minimal impact or is a role that can't get blamed. Like when you're playing Marvel Rivals, who's the first role you blame? Probably DPS, because you know if they're doing bad, like, bro, nothing's dying. Our space that we're being created, all the heals are outputting and nothing's being done. That means that's a DPS problem. They're not getting finals. But any good player would know, like, damn, they will analyze and be like, maybe it's not DPS, maybe it's the supports, maybe it's the tank just playing so like scared like that they aren't creating any frontlining space. And to really test this, if you're a DPS player or even a tank player or support player, test this on the opposite role that you think is being selfish. For example, if you're a DPS player, go up to a support and be like, all right, you know what? I want you to go a different support. Hell, I even want you to go a different role that you never played in your whole life. I want you to play DPS because I only know how to play support, and I want you to DPS. I want you to play hit scan because that would be the best DPS we need right now. They're gonna look you dead in the eye and not even probably even say anything or say like, oh, I don't know how to play DPS, or they'll just make any excuse like, oh, I don't even know how to play tank. I'm like, bruh, what? But these are the type of players that think they don't fall to the same rules. They don't think like they can be held accountable. Say this with tank players. Tell tank players, yo, support or try to play DPS. They'll be like, but I picked DPS first. I mean, I play tank first, and this is my main role, and I like playing tank. I'm like, nah, but we're doing this for the team. All right, stop playing for yourself and play as a team. All right, accommodate and switch. They're gonna look at you and be like, nope, I'm not doing that. Like, why do I have to accommodate, bro? Just do it for the team. And they just start getting mad and everything about this. And I think this is my first video explaining or basically tackling why DPS is a problem or why DPS players are becoming a big problem. It's because most DPS players, the ones I get in my high ranks, they don't care if they're doing bad. What I mean by this is that if you're Spider-Man and you're doing bad, most of the time you keep training, you keep practicing your combos, you keep trying to adapt, you keep trying to like play whatever you want. Why do you think supports get buffs? Because they know if the game is too hard, they basically end up having a miserable time and they end up quitting. Spider-Man mains, they can face a Cloak and Dagger with our 3 abilities and they'll keep playing Spider-Man like if it was nothing. This is why I don't really talk about DPS players like that, because like, yeah, some of them, the majority stereotype of DPS players are just straight up bots, but the other ones you meet are just straight up just don't even care. They don't care if they're doing bad or doing good, they'll keep playing. But DPS and tanks, they will keep complaining, they will keep doing bad. But mostly supports, they get accommodated too. But yeah, if you play Model Ravens, you know exactly what I mean with my final point, that people like to hide behind, morality, like, oh, but I'm playing support, I'm healing for the team, my heal these stats are good, or tank, I'm creating space and my damage blocked is high, I'm playing as a team, but you're a DPS and you have the most cool and most impactful role, you're not doing your impact, that means you're bad, and that means we can jump on the bandwagon and blame you for not winning the match, you're basically garbage, DPS diff, GG's. But all they're doing is hiding behind their stats. You know if you play this game, you know what I'm talking about. They're just hiding behind their stats, so they're no good looked at and blamed for being bad at the game. And the thing about it is that since I already repeated like so many times, you already know season 9, people are really starting to wake up and see like, yo, it's not just DPS, it's like supports, bro. Like just because you have high healing, just because you're healing the tank all the time, doesn't mean you're doing your job correctly. Just because you pop your ult at the right time, doesn't mean like you're off the hook. You gotta keep playing better. You gotta keep adapting. You gotta keep pushing up with your team. You gotta keep doing more, right? It's not just just heal and pop your ult when we need you to pop your ult. That's like the basic. But once you go further than that, accountable. But people don't like being held accountable in this game. They just like to hide behind their role, their stats, their hero. Like, you can't look at me. I'm just healing.